So now we're going to get going on the placket piece. So you're going to take each of your placket pieces, but we'll just do one for now. And you're going to fold in 1/4 inch on one of the long edges. I'm just clipping it because I didn't iron it. I do highly recommend ironing it. So funny story, I already recorded this whole video with another peplum and my phone won't play it back. So I'm redoing it now. The first time I did it completely right. I ironed everything I was supposed to iron. I used ribbing for the binding, but naturally that video won't play. So now I am kind of doing the shortcut to get through it quickly so that I can upload it on time for everybody. So you're going to take the long edge and fold it in 1/4 inch so wrong sides are touching. Alright, that's what it'll look like over here. And there's the folded in edge. And then you're going to line it up with one of your front bodice pieces. So here's the armpit and here is the center bodice. So you're going to pin it to the center bodice and not where you just folded it in. So the other raw edge is where we're going to attach it. And you want it to line up with the bottom, and you'll notice that it comes over longer than the binding top. We want that because that's pretty crucial in creating this type of placket. If you've done the bubble sunsuit, or I know it's done with that one, and it might be the same in the other bodysuit patterns, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, it'll be the same type of placket method. So if you're familiar with that, this will be pretty easy for you. If you're not, no worries, we're gonna go over it. So I'm just gonna throw some clips in over here, just a couple. And then you're going to serge or zigzag along the raw edge. Just make sure you're using a stretch stitch for whatever you do, and make sure that the bottoms are flush. And it's right sides together. Alright, so here's what the back looks like. You can see that it comes past the binding, and here's the front. It was right sides together. And now we're just going to do the same on the other side. If your fabric is directional, you're going to want to make sure that you fold back opposite sides when you're folding in this 1/4 inch piece. If your fabric's not directional, it doesn't matter which you do. But if you don't pay attention with your directional fabric, you'll have one of your plackets going upside down, which honestly isn't a huge deal because one of your plackets goes underneath the other and you can't see it at all. So if you do mess up, just make sure that that's the one that goes underneath, and that you put your buttons on and put your button holes on the one that's going the correct direction, and you'll never even know. That we have that done, we'll go on to constructing the actual placket part. So you should have also ironed on interfacing here. Even though I'm doing the placket actual construction, I'm going to make it a faux placket, so I'm not going to do buttonholes on it. I'm just going to overlap them and stitch the buttons directly on, so it's going to look very real. It's going to look more real than a true faux placket, but it won't actually be functional. And I'm doing that so that I can show you guys how to construct the placket, but I just don't prefer buttons on knit fabric. It just, for me, it just doesn't ever really work out very well. I feel like the buttons just stretch the fabric. The interfacing helps that a little, but anyhow, not my preference. So let's carry on. You're going to open up the placket like so. It'll be laying flat. And then you're going to take the placket piece only and fold it back on itself. So now it's right sides together on itself. And you want to keep your 1/4 inch raw edge still folded over. It'll probably actually be stuck down if you did interfacing like you're supposed to. And you want the edge where you fold it over right here to be lined up with where you serged it on to the bodice. So those two line up perfectly and overlap perfectly without either one going past the other. And then you're going to sew or serge right above where the binding is. So you can see here's the back side and the front side. And what you're going to do is just directly above the binding. You want to be so careful not to catch any of the binding. Just serge or sew right above it. I'm going to serge it just because that's my preference. And again, just be so careful that it goes directly above the binding. You want it to be as close as possible without catching it. And I caught it. Okay, no big deal. So I'll show you how to undo that right there. So just trim it right down to the bottom, and then grab your needle threads and pull, and the rest should just unravel. Super easy to pull out serge threads. Okay, so there we go. Now it's no longer attached right there, but it's perfectly lined up. So you can see on the back, perfectly lined up. And I'm just going to, no, it'll be fine. Just going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So again, you're unfolding it, laying it flat, and then folding it back on itself so that the edges line up. And let's hope that this one goes better for me and I don't catch anything I'm not supposed to catch. Alright, this one came out perfect. So, you can see that, oh, I didn't practice that next, that's sorry. So you can see that it is directly above the binding, like so perfectly lined up, without catching the binding at all. Now, what you do is you just unfold it onto itself. So it's like this, you just flip it. And it should just fold right back over onto itself. So that's why we folded under this 1/4 inch right here, so that when we go ahead and top stitch it down, there's no raw edge showing. You can just take like a seam ripper or a needle or something to just really carefully grab that corner and pop it out, so you have a nice sharp corner. And then you're just going to go ahead and top stitch right along where you serged here, and make sure that you're catching the underside. So you want that 1/4 inch to just perfectly cover up where your seam is showing, where your serger seam is showing on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and pin that in a few spots to make sure I'm catching all the layers. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did before when I was serging. I'm just going to pull these tails out a little bit so that I can pull on them while I'm top stitching, just while I'm starting, so that it moves it along a bit. Okay. Let's see. Okay. caught me for a second there, but I got it. It's always scary when your machine makes a noise. And now what I'm going to do is right at the top, you're not going to serge or sew or do anything over this top seam right here. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that these threads get locked in, because you can't backstitch with a double needle. So what I do is I go to the back, I find the bobbin thread, and if you just pull on the bobbin thread, it will pull through the front threads to the back. Although mine got a little funky back here when it was making that catching noise. But you just pull, there we go, and it'll pull those front threads through, and then I tie them in a knot and tie them off, and then you trim them, and that locks them in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm flipping it out. It folds right over onto itself automatically. I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch that too, and I will catch you back after that is done.